Welcome to another episode of Pilots Say What, where we hear what pilots have to say. And today we have a guest named Jessica. We've talked to you before. We've talked a little bit before this, but I'm very excited to have you on the podcast today because I feel like you're gonna have some interesting perspectives that are a little bit unique, and I'm happy to shine light on those. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so my name's Jessica Dvorak,
Mhm.
originally from Albuquerque.
Mhm.
And yeah, I am working on my commercial rating at Thrust Flight.
Okay, gotcha. So you say you're from Albuquerque. When did you end up in Dallas? Did that have anything to do with aviation?
Had nothing to do with aviation,
Hmm.
needed out of Albuquerque because it's a small town, but
Hmm. Yeah.
moved to Dallas 3 years ago.
Mhm.
Originally, or before that, we were in Austin.
So you went from New Mexico, Albuquerque, New Mexico,
Yep.
to Austin for a little while, and
Hmm.
then ended up in the DFW, right?
Correct.
Gotcha. And is there something? Is that what drove you to come to the DFW?
My husband's career. Yeah, he got a
Okay.
promotion, and
Yeah.
so we packed up and moved to the big city.
It sounds like, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong. Did the idea to get into aviation kind of come after you were in Dallas?
Yeah, prior to being in the aviation space, I worked in events.
Hmm.
So large scale to small scale, luxury
Yeah.
to state fairs. In Austin, worked at the Trail of Lights. So
Uh-huh.
that's one of their larger Christmas events. We did luxury events in Napa and Beaver
Mm.
Creek, and I was traveling a ton.
Yeah.
And so constantly going back and forth to Austin, all those other locations. I
Mhm.
was averaging every 8 days on a plane. And
That's
so
a lot of flying.
it was a lot of flying, yeah.
Mhm,
It was a lot of work, a lot of fun.
mhm,
Working in events is a blast,
mhm,
but, you're traveling and then you have to go and actually work, so having that
mm,
epiphany moment when I was on the planes, I was like, "I would like to just do this part because the traveling is the fun part,
mhm.
and not have to work afterwards."
Yeah, gotcha. It's you can, like, work while flying instead of just flying to work. So that
Exactly.
sounds I could see how your brain did that. It's a little bit like, "Hey, let's be efficient here."
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Did you have any interest in aviation, though?
No. No, not
No.
until I started traveling a ton for work.
And that's why I'm asking, 'cause I think we talked to a lot of people, and they're like, "Yeah, I saw a plane when I was a kid," or "I know somebody," or something like that. And so they're like, "Yeah, I just eventually pulled the trigger and I did it." I'm curious about, like, was there a moment you just kind of noticed, you started thinking about it? Was there a moment that made you want to switch up what you were doing?
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. Again, it is a ton of work to do events.
Hmm.
And when I was in the midst of all that travel and always being out and about, that's when they had the pilot shortage. And I was like,
Mm,
wait, this, I
mm,
could do this. Like I
yeah,
could be in the front of the plane instead of being in the back. And
yeah.
that's where I got my inspiration.
That's really cool. I hear a lot of people talk about also the pilot shortage, which I had no idea about in the past. I mean, I was nowhere near aviation.
Hmm.
So I guess there seemed to have been an opportunity there. I want to, like, circle back because now you're saying you started to look into aviation and maybe pull the trigger. Before we get into how you really got to thrust flight, I'm a little more curious about maybe when you were younger, or some of the things that you kind of like had interests in.
Cheerleader in high school,
Okay.
got most spirited,
Okay.
which, great
Hmm.
accolade to have.
Yeah.
And yeah, went to school at UNM.
Hmm.
Um, Fun fact, if you graduate from a high school in New Mexico, you get to go to college there for free. So got to go
Wow.
to undergrad for free. And I went for marketing and advertising.
Oh, that's really cool. So you went for marketing and advertising. Did that play into your event planning at all? Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm sure it's. I mean, you sounds like you probably have to get people to the event, maybe sometimes too. So.
Exactly. Yeah. My sole focus in the event space was actually sponsorship management.
Hmm.
So making sure all of our fancy sponsors were happy and that their activations were going off without a
Mm.
hitch and tickets and, making sure everyone had a really great time at our super intense productions we put on.
Gotcha. Did you do anything before the event planning in marketing and advertising?
Yes, but it always was around events. So
Oh, okay, okay.
originally my marketing background started with a ticketing and website company for
Hmm.
fairs, rodeos, events, and arenas.
Okay.
And from that role, I decided and found out that the actual event itself was more intriguing
Hmm.
than, tracking emails and looking at data
The
and
administrative things. Yeah, I
exactly.
understand. I struggle with those myself. I like to be on the other side and get out in the field and work and things like that. I'm curious, you got into aviation and you see the opportunity with the pilot shortage and you're flying all the time already. You're like, well, let's see about this.
Yeah.
What was the first step you took? I'm very curious. This is like one of my favorite questions. What's like the first step you took to even like explore the option of getting into aviation or flying?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
I probably talked to my husband. I was probably tired, burnt out from a bunch of travel and,
Mm-hmm.
a busy event.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously the next step is talk to somebody about it. So I
Mm-hmm.
reached out to a friend. I used to live in the Caribbean,
Mm-hmm.
and one of my friends there used
Yeah.
to who was my boss. He is a pilot now, and I
Mm-hmm.
just reached out to him and I was like, "Tell me everything. Do
Yeah.
you love it? Is this worth it? Is it worth the jump?" Because he kind of did the same thing.
Oh,
He
he did
got in.
something else before.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
He used to own businesses in the Caribbean and gave that up, and then decided he wanted to be a pilot. And he said it's the best decision he's ever made. And I was like, done, easy.
That's very interesting. And I could almost go down the rabbit hole of like you used to live in the Caribbean, but maybe I'll say that for later. um, but you reached out to him and he said, "Yeah, it's totally worth it." I mean, you at least got affirmation from someone.
Absolutely.
And then, if I'm not mistaken, I think you might have mentioned before when we were talking that you're like, "Okay, this is a different field than I would imagine myself going into."
Yeah.
And you heard from I think another woman that it might be something that they didn't regret doing as well. Was there any like kind of feedback you got there?
Yeah. So the way that I found thrust was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people do a ton of research and
Hmm.
they go and take tours.
Hmm.
I didn't find a school immediately when I was in Dallas that I liked. I
Hmm.
heard a lot of bad things about the schools I was looking into.
Hmm.
So I was getting defeated, and I didn't know what to do. So I looked into female pilots in Dallas, and this one girl popped up. She used to instruct here. I reached out to her via Instagram, and I was like, "Hey, tell me everything about thrust. Do you love it here? Like, is it your, are you happy with your decision that you made? Because the internet's a scary place.
Uh-huh.
You look at Reddit, and it's like everything is terrible. And you're like,
Yeah.
it's not all terrible.
Hmm.
So reached out to this girl, and she was like, "Yeah, I actually really enjoyed my time there.
Mm,
I'm not there anymore. Definitely suggest you should go to that school."
that's really
And
cool.
then I filled out the online form, and I was like, "Great."
Was that like a Facebook group that you found this person in,
No,
or
like
just literally just?
literally go to Instagram and look up female pilots Dallas. Her name popped up.
Oh, that's so cool.
I was
That's
just
so
like,
cool.
keywords. What do I need? Using
That's
that marketing background.
that's really yes, exactly. There you go. That's resourceful. I remember when we were talking before, I had like kind of the impression that you didn't really do any research. And you just kind of hopped into it, which
Yeah.
which may be true on some level in comparison to some
Oh
people,
yeah.
right? Which is an interesting part of the topic too. But so you talked to her and she says, "Yeah, you should do it." Did you called us? You did it? You didn't? Did you do a tour or anything after
No,
that?
no. It
Yeah,
was like, I need to get started yesterday. I was
yeah,
like, let's do it right now. Let's make it happen.
yeah.
The earliest I could get in was March. This was back in January of 24. Oh my goodness. Yeah, this
No,
is January of this year. So,
that's crazy.
yep.
Okay. And so you just submitted an application. You got, I mean, I guess accepted.
Mm-hmm.
Went through some of the steps like getting your maybe did you get your written done ahead of time? I want to ask you that real quick. It's completely off
No,
topic.
no.
No, that's what everyone says. You should.
Definitely should do it.
Okay.
But when you don't have any context of what it is, you're very confused. Like I
Mm,
downloaded the test bank and I was like, great, I'm gonna learn this. And then you start reading it, you're like, I have no idea what's going on. Later
okay.
you realize you're supposed to just memorize it.
Yeah, it's sort
That's
of this.
not the
Yeah.
time to learn.
Okay, copy.
Yeah.
That's good. Then I'll ask you this question. It's time to start your program here at
Mhm.
Thrust Flight, the ZTA program.
Yeah.
So, what are some steps between deciding you want to do it and actually starting a program at any school that you could think would be helpful for someone to hear about, whether it be medicals, writtens, and stuff like that? Could you give some context to that process?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely get the medical first. Then I
Hmm.
think most schools require that prior to you even enrolling or taking out the loan or however your process is.
Hmm.
Do take the written.
Yeah.
I know you don't want to, but do take the written.
Hmm.
And then just start familiarizing yourself with the new language.
Hmm.
Aviation is a brand new world of lingo that's going to
Yeah.
be super confusing. So just start familiarizing yourself, listening to live ATC. That was huge when I first started because everyone's scared to talk to the man in the sky, right? We're
Yeah.
like, ugh, he's gonna make fun of me. He
Yeah.
might, but just familiarize yourself that we're all humans. When you get onto the comms, everybody's gonna mess up, including ATC. So
Yeah. Like for example, a medical. Um, since we've heard those tips, I'm wondering like what do you do to schedule a medical for someone who maybe doesn't even go to the doctor?
Yeah.
Just call.
You do. You
Yeah.
really do. You look for an AME and then
Mhm,
you say, "Hi, I'm interested in going to flight school. I'd like to get my first class medical."
mhm,
And then they set you up with an appointment. You show up
mm,
and obviously you have to pass all of their many tests, but
mhm. Okay.
it was pretty easy, pretty straightforward on that one.
Yeah, and okay, gotcha. And then, oh, because for I'm gonna be honest with you, uh, calling and finding out the right dentist and a doctor, I'm like, for some reason, that seems like the most impossible task for me,
No.
and I think that's maybe a stereotype of guys. But it is definitely. I'm like, what do I do? I just Google someone? I don't know if they're a good
Yeah.
doctor, but I guess you do that.
Yeah.
So for the written, like you said, it is kind of that one's easily overwhelming without any sort of context, especially the knowledge itself.
Yeah.
If someone hears get the written done, what does that kind of mean?
That means they don't have to go to mandatory study halls, which
Okay.
is epic. Because
Okay.
when you start, you're overwhelmed, right?
Mhm.
You know nothing, and you're just like everything is coming at you super
Mhm.
fast. So you have your ground courses.
Mhm.
You're probably starting your sims. Maybe
Mhm.
you're already getting flight scheduled, and
Mhm.
then on top of that, you have to do mandatory study halls every single day.
That's if you don't get your written done. The
If you
man
don't
the
get your
mandatory study halls are on top of all the other
uh
things.
huh,
Yeah, okay, that sounds a little tough.
yeah,
So does someone Google writtens? Like what do they do? I
yeah.
don't know how you schedule a written. I personally don't even know actually. So
Yeah, no, the FAA website, you get on
mm,
there, it's PSI, I think,
mhm.
and, you sign up at in many locations. Thrust has one, which is
Okay.
awesome.
Okay.
And yeah, you just
Okay.
make sure you study, memorize all of those questions, and take the
Mhm.
test. It's actually really chill once you get through it all, but you have
Okay.
to memorize all the questions first.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. And we've done some videos about how to study for your writtens and things like that, but never
Yeah.
really how to like what the next step is. So that's great. Just know that if you're thinking about flying, maybe get your writtens done, and it'll help
Yeah,
your starting process. Right. So
absolutely.
so now you're in. Let's say you're in the program. Like, was there? I mean, did you have an expectation? What was it like your first maybe couple weeks coming into the program?
So stressful.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's so scary.
Yeah. Because you
Again,
just submitted and started. So.
yeah, exactly. I
Uh-huh,
didn't do all of the background research that I now know, right? Hindsight 2020.
uh-huh,
Um, but yeah, it's very overwhelming. It's stressful. Luckily, my March class, so I started in March.
mhm,
We were a large class. I think we were 28 people in our private class, and
mhm,
we all just kind of bonded together,
yeah,
which was really nice. It kind of, obviously having that little community helped
mhm,
ease all of our stresses.
mhm,
Having people to study with was huge.
yeah,
um, but yeah, the first 2 weeks, I can remember them very vividly. You're just like everything feels overwhelming.
because it's like a whole, like you said, there's sort of a culture to aviation that I've discovered since being a part of this company, right?
Yeah.
But there's like a culture to it, and that is the part that you don't really realize is gonna be, like you said, a little overwhelming, I guess. Like the lingo
Oh yeah.
and like what I mean, there's so much lingo. Actually, it's the lingo, the acronyms. Just like, what did you just say?
They're
And
so
so is
big.
asking people what they mean is
Mhm.
like a thing.
Oh
It
yeah.
sounds like so. But you got started. I feel like you're really plugged in now. Every time I'm over at the school, like I see you and you're working with I don't know the CFIs or even Irma. Irma's like our student liaison for anyone who's listening. Who she's someone who works with the students, make sure their program's going well.
Yeah.
But I see you over there often. Um, like, what are some things that you're involved in now that you're here?
Yeah.
Mhm,
So, given my background
mhm,
and connecting with the different staff members here,
mhm,
they suggested that I start ramping,
mhm,
and not ramping in the traditional sense, like cleaning out the hangar and making sure the planes look pretty.
mhm,
They actually wanted my help with planning monthly
mhm,
events. So, in
mhm,
addition to ZTA Day once a month,
mhm,
we also are planning monthly fun events.
mhm.
Yeah, we started that back in, I think, August with bingo night, which was a blast. We had like 100 students come. We played bingo in the hangar. It was super fun.
Yeah.
Then we did an Oktoberfest,
Mhm,
followed by tailgate and
mhm.
Friendsgiving. Obviously, we just
Yeah.
had that. It was a lot of fun. And then, of course, we're going to do a holiday party.
Yeah.
So making sure that we're keeping that theme of community
Mm.
outside of just the classes, right?
Do you feel like that's really helpful for the students here, or what do we get out of that kind of?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Again, going back to community here,
Uh-huh.
it is so big and huge.
Mhm,
You learn so much from the other students.
mhm,
Like you're never going to learn all the intricacies of
Mhm.
everyone's check rides unless you go and talk to them, right?
Mhm.
And then that just helps you learn even more from
Mhm.
their mistakes or their strengths, whatever it is that they might be doing at the time.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, the ZTA day I think just reminds everyone we are a big group. We're
Mhm.
all focusing on the same goal,
Mm.
and you can come up to anybody, and that is a great time to meet new people. I
Mhm.
love meeting the new students. Every month I'm like, "Hi, how
Yeah.
are you? Are you as scared as I was? Because I'm sure you were.
Yeah.
Um, let's be friends." And then we do. We start a group me. We start chatting there
Mhm.
and try and make everyone feel really welcome.
Yeah, oh, that's great. And you mentioned like um I like how you mentioned the fact that everyone has the same goal.
Yeah.
But you also mentioned that maybe everyone can start off a little scared. You came into it, not being super familiar. Had you ever been in a smaller plane before? Like something that's not like a commercial jet or something?
No.
No.
No, the first flight
Okay.
was
So
terrifying.
you didn't do a discovery flight to be clear, right?
No, yeah.
Okay, so you signed up, you joined the program, and at some point, as a student that you already are, you have to take a flight, right?
Yeah, they're like, "Get up there in the sky," and you're like, "Really? Okay, let's go. Why
Yeah.
not?"
On that first flight, do you fly when you do that? How much of the maneuvering do you do there?
You do a lot. You
Yeah.
do mostly all of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you taxi out of here, your feet are on the rudders.
Mhm.
You are the one. Luckily, I didn't have to make the calls.
Yeah.
I was way too overwhelmed to make any calls that
Mhm.
day.
Mhm.
But yeah, you go full throttle. You're the one pulling back on the yoke to take off.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. It's great. I
I
would do it again.
I think it was my first day here, and I had to interview some of the students on for some video stuff. But I remember one of the, I think the girl I was talking to, she said that within her first 2 weeks, she had already taken off, flown, and landed a plane.
Oh yeah,
And I think from an outside mind, that sounds kind of wild to me. To
absolutely.
think that you're gonna throw someone you just consider a regular civilian in a plane and let them fly.
Hmm.
But that's kind of how it is. I mean, that's what it seems like to me. So
That's the only way to learn.
pretty interesting. Would you suggest people take a discovery flight beforehand?
Yeah, I might as
Maybe so.
well.
Okay,
Might as
I
well
was
do
just curious.
it.
I
Yeah.
was just curious about that. Well, being that you did get into it and that you did like the flying process, what part of your training are you on now?
Commercial.
Commercial, gotcha.
Hmm.
So there's private, there's instrument, and then there's commercial, right?
That's correct.
How's it going? How's it feel?
It's great. It's
Yeah,
so much fun.
yeah.
I'm currently working at the stage where you just kind of review all your maneuvers from
Mhm,
private.
mhm.
So that's been really nice, not learning a whole lot that's new, just mastery of what you already did back in private, and
Yeah.
it's been a blast. And the weather is so much nicer.
Mhm.
Oh, it's great. Now that the temperatures have dropped,
Yeah.
it has
Okay.
been night and day from learning in the summers in
Mhm.
Dallas to the winters in Dallas.
Yeah.
Incredible.
That's nice. Well, then I want to circle back to something real quick. So
Yeah.
you're already in the program, and I can't remember. Oh, how did that conversation go with your husband? Is what I want to know, sort of a little bit about. I think it's easy, even for me. Like if I want to tell my girlfriend that, hey, I'm thinking about doing this instead of everything I was already doing.
Mhm.
That's kind of like a nerve wracking conversation. And I don't know if there's much to say here, but was was that a smooth conversation? Was that easzy? Did you have any nerves about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he definitely had his hesitations when I was like, I'm going to become a pilot. He's like, Are you okay today? Like, is
Yes.
everything all right?
It's
And I'm
kind of
like,
reactions I get from my girlfriend.
Right. And I'm like,
Yeah.
No, 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 I'm going to do it. Like, I'm
Mhm.
looking into it. I've talked to my friend, I'm going to do it. And he was super supportive.
Okay.
Obviously looking into ways to financially work through it.
Mhm.
Flight
Mhm.
training is not inexpensive.
Yeah.
And making sure that we would be fine in uh, that state of life, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was for the most part he was super super supportive.
That's cool. I mean that's really cool to hear, I guess. I wanted to ask that just in case anyone else is worried about all the other parts of their life that it may impact.
Yeah.
Because even now you're full time as a student, right? Like you're not really working outside of this. I assume because I don't think y'all are supposed to.
Right.
So yeah. What's it like being a full time student again?
It is it's a lot and you forget, it's been I don't even know how many years since I was in college.
Hmm.
More than I want to say out
Yeah.
here. But yeah, getting back into the rhythm of studying and forcing
Hmm.
yourself to study instead of, sit on the couch or
Hmm.
scroll Instagram. And yeah, it's been fun. The testing.
Yeah.
Testing. Why?
It's like a weird that's a weird
Getting
thing to
back
have to
there.
prepare for,
Yeah,
right?
you're like, no, no more tests.
Studying and things like that,
Yeah.
that's completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, well, I guess I asked those things since you're a career changer and for anyone who may be switching over from some other area of their life. Um, anything's possible. It sounds like that's all I'm trying to say. Um,
Absolutely.
I want to circle back to you saying that you did manage to at least touch base with at least one more woman who had
Yeah.
come here. I see a lot more women here now,
Yeah.
and I don't know. Not that it was ever like that much different, but I like to say that because it is sort of like a male dominated field. It seems like I don't know any statistics here. It's just from my own perception. I heard that you're involved with some of the women in aviation stuff here at Thrust. What
Yeah.
is that like? I don't know
Yeah.
anything about that.
So there's a handful of things there.
Hmm.
Yes, there are more females, which is
Yes.
great. I'm super jazzed about it.
Hmm.
I recently, not recently, I guess a few months ago,
Hmm.
started a girl gang here.
Okay.
That we're not an actual gang, but we are a
Okay.
group of girls.
Uh-huh.
There's about 40 of us now at the school, which is huge.
Wow. Yeah.
The statistic is there's 6% female pilots in the world.
Okay.
So we're still very minority.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely enjoy gathering the group of females here, making sure that everyone feels welcome.
Hmm.
Everyone, yeah, I don't know, has that community in case they're not building that outside of, their classes or whatever else here
Hmm.
at Thrust.
Hmm.
And then I recently, going back to Women's in Aviation, got elected to the board as the program chair. So I'm also planning events for Women's in Aviation, the North Texas chapter.
I just wanted to make sure I heard a little bit more about that. Now that you're on your commercial,
Hmm.
technically you're able to, make money as a pilot, although you are a part of this program already. Do you
Hmm.
have like maybe a certain direction you're looking on going in your career? Do you have any like vision for that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully end up at Delta one day. I feel
Okay.
like that's the dream airline for a lot of Thrust students.
Hmm.
But yeah, any path that gets me there, I will take. I'm like,
Yeah.
if a jet job plops into my lap,
Hmm.
I'm all yours.
Gotcha. Are you aware of any of the steps that kind of help make that transition from being a student or graduating and going into the airlines?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely want to become a CFI. It
Hmm.
looks great on the resume. It's a
Hmm.
great way to build your hours. And then hopefully you get into a cadet program. I
Hmm.
know a lot of us go into the Envoy program
Hmm.
from Thrust. And I don't know if you guys have covered this before, but you don't typically want to get into a regional airline as the same airline you want to end up at.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And what is that? What is that about?
It's because they don't wanna pull from their own,
Mm.
pile of pilots. That's pile of pilots. Yeah.
That's funny.
They don't
Uh,
wanna pull from
yeah.
there, so they take from the other regional airlines and
Hmm.
then promote you to the big leagues.
I see what you're saying. That makes a little more sense because
Mhm.
they're hiring someone on one good time instead of like having to move someone around and then still fill a position. That's a
Exactly.
little bit more legwork on the back end. It sounds like.
Exactly.
Um, okay, well that's really cool. I look forward to seeing what you do with us here at
Yeah.
Thrust. I mean, I've seen you around, like I said, working here all the time. So I think we've covered everything. I appreciate you coming on and talking with us and giving a little bit of the perspective that you have. We'll have this episode out shortly. If you haven't seen any of our previous episodes, they're all up on YouTube. We're on all the streaming platforms, including Spotify and Apple Music. So if you're listening to this still at this moment, please do give us a rating, maybe give us a like, comment, or a subscribe. It really helps us out and helps more people get to hear from more of our students and more of our CFIs and anyone we might bring on. So we'll see you guys next week and on the next episode of Pilots Say What.